Hi guys, and welcome back to Chaos Head Noah. Last time, yeah, things got a bit intense to say the least, so, man, I felt really bad for Takumi there for once. Like, I know I haven't really, spoken much, given much substantial thoughts on, what I've been thinking of the game now, but I think probably now's as good a time as any, so I've been entertained by Takumi as a protagonist so far. Um, he's definitely not like, oh man, this guy is literally me or anything. No, he's kind of a pathetic loser, but like it's clear that he has certain insecurities regarding other people, being able to trust and open up to other people. And with Yua, he thought he finally found a person he could do that with. Like, his thoughts were clearly tainted by his history with all this perverted stuff, but as you see in his inner thoughts, like, the things he was most concerned about with her was pretty much, is she being genuine with me? Can I really trust her? And it's kind of clear that more than anything, he really just wanted a friend that he could really, a friend who valued him and who he could value in return, someone who he had common ground with. And to see him have to realize that he was indeed just, his insecurities were correct all along. Yeah, it's just, it sucks to see. And, well, the thing that's really interesting here, though, was that entire scene, while it did seem to pretty much connect all the dots, put all the pieces in place, and it seemed like everything about it made sense. It was triggered by me picking a delusion, and I don't plan to go back and see how things would play out differently, because I want there to be that kind of mystery to it. Like, did that really happen, or was it just a delusion of Takumi's? And, like, is it possible it was an encounter he had in the future or something that he instead witnessed now? What I'm really interested to see is, like, what's going to happen when he next sees Yua? Is she at all aware that that conversation has happened? Is she, like, does she know that happened? Like, did those events happen in the first place? Is kind of just what I'm wondering. Like, because we know these delusions of his are scarily vivid for him, but they also typically, well, from what we've seen so far, they typically involve, like, some level of, oh yeah, this definitely isn't real. Like, when the quote-unquote demon girl grabbed his arm, for example, he saw it as a weird green, almost veiny, possibly decaying arm. And with his Seira delusion, like, yeah, of course she doesn't exist, and she's just telling him what he wants to hear. But here, it seemed almost like a scarily real encounter. And it seemed to just give the answers to everything, so I'll stop holding this up now, but I'm really, really curious to see where this goes. I think this line was voiced last time, so I'm just going to progress it as normal. Lying face down on the floor, Nishijo Takumi held a colored pencil in his hand. The one he was currently using was yellow, having switched from a red one only a few minutes ago. He joyously ran his pencil across the spread-out sketchbook, which he was nearly lying on top of. Takumi loved drawing pictures. He would always doodle on the edges of his notes during every lesson at school. The morning news had been left running in the background, but since news and the like was boring to a fourth grader like Takumi, he did not pay it any mind. Vroom! Vroom, vroom! Candy! Get your candy here! Only 300 yen! He was drawing a yellow bus and pretending he was the driver. All ashore that's going ashore! We're heading out! Vroom! As he imagined the scene in his head, he made it actually happen in the picture. Times where he would get too excited and accidentally draw on the tatami beneath him were not exactly infrequent. Nanami, who would always read manga beside him, would scold him each time he did it. She had some nerve considering she was the little sister, usually saying things along the lines of, "Oh, come on, don't get the floor all dirty." Even so, Takumi never became any less immersed in his art. However, when he got to the point of drawing the people in the window, his hand suddenly stopped. Very deep voice for a child. Not like I can exactly complain given my own attempt at a voice there just now. Then he ripped up the sketchbook and threw it away. On the previous day, on the day where the autumn field trip had only been one more day away, Takumi had suddenly been told by his parents that he couldn't go. Even though it had been something he had been looking forward to for a very long time. So much so that he had been in a constant state of excitement for the entire day, wanting the next to arrive as soon as possible. That cruel declaration from his parents was something Takumi absolutely could not accept. He kicked and screamed, saying he would definitely go no matter what, but it was no use. His parents would not listen no matter what he said, choosing only to repeat the same words over and over again. "You just can't. We're doing this for you, Takumi." Takumi sank into his bed and trembled with so much frustration, he was very close to ripping his futon to shreds. He resented his parents from the bottom of his heart. For Takumi, that field trip had been a big event that could not have come soon enough. Everyone else in his class could go, but he alone was not allowed to. From his perspective, that was beyond unreasonable. Takumi was in a lonely world. Everyone else was in a super fun world. To him, it felt like he alone had been completely cut off from it. He could not forgive the teacher, his classmates, anyone. They had all left him behind. And he especially could not forgive his parents for their sudden, unfair decision. Those feelings transformed into pure hatred toward his parents, and toward all of his classmates. Takumi bit his lip hard enough to draw blood. He muttered curses at them over and over. I don't think anyone should be allowed to go. The following morning arrived. The phone had been ringing over and over again since dawn. Each time his mother would pick up the phone, she seemed to be very shaken while talking. Takumi could not even get a wink of sleep. The clock passed 9 a.m. In her usual well-behaved manner, Nanami was sitting on a floor cushion, reading manga. She had told Takumi the day before, "I'm gonna take a break from school to keep you company, okay?" As if she thought it was the obvious thing for her to do. Aw, that's kinda sweet. Unfortunately, Takumi is Takumi. Their father had already gone to work, so he was not around. Their mother was very busy with the phone calls and had yet to prepare breakfast. There was no need for him to go to school that day. Sullen as he was, Takumi opened his sketchbook and began to distract himself by drawing. His feelings of rage refused to subside, so he tore up the sketchbook in frustration. As he did that, however, Nanami sounded puzzled. Takumi had thought she was talking about his picture, but her gaze was actually aimed at the TV. Oh, is this gonna go where I think it's going? Did his mother have precognitive abilities or something? Nanami called out loudly to her mother, who was still busy with the phone calls. Now listening, Takumi followed his sister's gaze and stared vacantly at the TV screen. The screen displayed a scene of a collapsed elevated highway. A section that was only about 50 meters long had fallen. Regrettably, a bus driving along there at the time had been caught up in the collapse, toppling onto its side beneath the overpass. It was the very same bus that Takumi should have been on. The bus his classmates were riding on. From just a single glance, Takumi could imagine exactly what had happened. His classmates were on the screen. One child was sobbing, another had blood all over their forehead, and another was lying atop a stretcher being carried into an ambulance. The reporter was announcing the state of the accident with a grave look on their face, but Takumi did not really understand what they were talking about. His mother was standing at the entrance to the room, holding a cordless phone. Her face was pale. Well, she sounds surprised. But why wasn't he allowed to go in the first place is what I'm wondering. Was it just circumstances? And there's also Nanami staying home too. Which, I mean, it sounds like that was her own decision, but were his parents aware of were either of his parents aware that something bad was going to happen? Or I suppose the other possibility is that we're implying that somehow him thinking that nobody should be allowed to go is what resulted in this. Which, I mean, given what we've been dealing with in the game so far, seems like the most probable. But, yeah. I'll just go ahead and shut up now. Died. For some reason, Takumi was already sure of this. Everything happening on the TV was eerily similar to what he had pictured in his head the night before, when he had been overwhelmed by frustration and hatred. There was only one feeling that occupied the depths of his mind, a peculiar conviction, one where he was sure that he had precognitive abilities. Long ago, A show on TV that examined people who claimed to have ESP had been etched into Takami's mind. A person with precognitive abilities had appeared on the show, shocking the world by demonstrating frightening ESP in the experiment. The experiment verified whether or not the psychic could guess which of 12 items were placed in which numbered box. They did this by placing the subject in a different room, and proceeding to have them predict which cards with the item name on them belonged to which box. Afterward, staff members in the other room would place the actual items into boxes, then verify how many the psychic foretold. The person on the show received an incredible 90% correct, causing an uproar among the entertainers. As this happened, Takami tested if he could predict things the same way the psychic on TV did, only to get every single one correct. Of course, he did not tell anyone else about this. So, is it possible that somehow he has such strong delusions that he's able to make things into reality, perhaps? I suppose it could be he just has precognitive abilities, but is there perhaps something about him that allowed him to convince himself that this happened? And so it did. Nah, I'm just spitballing. So, as he gazed up at the TV, he believed that the accident was yet another instance of his precognitive predictions being exactly right.
クラスの半数以上の子が怪我したらしくて、なんてこと。
His mother tried hugging him as he lay down, but Takami avoided her grasp and crawled to the corner of the room.
でも、本当に良かったわ。
Her eyes swam about as she whispered in a hollow voice.
今日、タキちゃんを休ませておいて、本当に良かった。
But why did you make him stay home? Takami felt sick. They were useless, he thought to himself. His abilities had not made a single difference. Just thinking about it made his heart turn to ice in an instant. After that, Takami stopped speaking to others for a while. He quite literally went mute. He did not say a single word to another soul. His parents worried about him, and their already overprotective habits escalated even further. Finding them to be acting more and more ridiculous, Takami thus decided to play the role of a mute boy. He thought of it as revenge against them. Due to his complete lack of talking, his mother took him to be seen in the psychiatry ward of the general hospital, and there, he was diagnosed with PTSD. Since Takami did not actually have PTSD or anything of the sort, he never once took his medicine. He merely pretended to. His parents never realized he was acting, and in the end, he didn't feel even a hint of pity as they worried themselves sick over him. Well, that was interesting. Everything felt like a lie. The world was filled with falsities. It was overflowing with malice. It was out to get me.
いつもあなたが使っているチャットルームへログインして自分で調べてみてください。
She definitely didn't say that yesterday.
私の言っていることが間違っていないってわかるはずです。それと、私が言ったことは全部本心です。これだけは信じて。
After bombarding me with her nonsensical theories, Yua had said that one last thing before she'd left. There was no way I could believe her. How the hell was I supposed to believe someone that had been lying to me this entire time? I refused to believe that everything there was me, like Yua had said. Everything she'd said about me being Shogun was a total joke. I wanted to believe that. But when I checked the timestamps in the chat log, there was no mistaking that the conversation wasn't matching up.
僕は無遊病なの?
Sleepwalking, also known as somnambulism or noctambulism, a behavior disorder in which during sleep, especially non-REM sleep, the subject gets up as if they were conscious, wanders around, eats, bathes, etc., but cannot converse beyond simple topics. Depending on the individual, the state can last from anywhere to a few minutes to half an hour. At the end of that time frame, the individual returns to the place where they were initially sleeping and goes back to sleep. While in this state, the individual is completely unconscious and as such has no memory of their actions once they wake up. This behavior often occurs in people with mental problems and is often said to be unconsciously caused by stress. Problem was, during the time Shogun appeared to be posting in chat, I hadn't been sleeping at all. If I recalled correctly, I had indeed been at cafe at that time, but I hadn't slept, so I couldn't have been sleepwalking. In that case, I wondered why I didn't have any memories of posting as Shogun. Maybe my body had been being controlled by someone else, which would mean... No, that's ridiculous. I felt that the best way to calm myself down was to escape from reality into the fictional world of ESO. In ESO, everything was fake, a lie. At the end of the day, its world was just part of a video game. But in Basilard, I could become the godlike existence known as Neidhart. A fabrication like that, a lie like that, was something I'd readily accept. I wanted to stay there. Nobody would mind if I did, would they? Or maybe the world of ESO was actually the real world, and my own reality was the fake one. Just a game. In that case, Nishijo Takumi would be a fictional character, and Neidhart would be my true form.
ねえ、ナイトハルト。
I called out to the paladin standing inside the monitor. Was I controlling you, or were you controlling me? Which was it? Could you be real, and I a mere avatar? What if the world I was in was just a game in and of itself? If that were true, that would solve every mystery I was struggling with. What if, just like how I was staring at Neidhart within my monitor, what if someone was staring at me in the exact same way? Hello, Takumi. It's me, Swanima. Whose eyes are those eyes? That would make them the player controlling me. If I did have someone controlling me, would it kill them to do less of a shit job? Hey, I'm trying my best, man. Give me a break. No, I guess an avatar couldn't really complain. It would also explain how Shogun and I could be the same person, validating that theory. Come to think of it, it was kind of like what Lieselot was. Neidhart and Lieselot couldn't possibly exist in Basilard at the same time. I was the only one playing as them, after all. I mean, if you get two computers, you could try. Maybe Shogun and Nishijo Takumi were similar and couldn't exist in the world at the same time. It was also possible that it was a bug. Speaking of bugs, encountering that bizarre girl in a murder case, as well as a whole bunch of other stuff that happened, could have been bugs too. The image Shogun had sent to me flashed through my mind. I gripped my head with my hands and frantically shook it away. I wanted to run away from everything. If maybe, just maybe, there was a player controlling me. Please, reset me already. Just remake my character and start from scratch. Please. The waiting room at the university hospital was filled to the brim with middle-aged people waiting to be examined. It almost... Oh. Okay, so this is still talking to me. It almost made me feel as if time itself had stopped there. Moreover, everyone there looked miserable, and the smell of disinfectant pervaded the stagnant air. It was the kind of place that sucked all the life out of you, and made you wish for the sweet embrace of death and life in its tops. I didn't like hospitals. The way the lobbies had countless people, yet the corridors beyond felt completely devoid of them, had always freaked me out ever since I was a little kid. Liminal spaces. It almost felt like the corridors themselves absorbed and stewed in the stench of death. I always felt that was what a hospital truly represented beyond its outer facade. I even thought that some horrifying creature was lying in wait deep within the corridors. That was why I really didn't want to go in there. But there was something I had to make sure of no matter what. So I found myself reluctantly waiting my turn in line for an examination. Even when I tried to fully immerse myself in ESO, the bombshell that Yua had dropped on me continued to swirl around and around inside my head, and I hadn't been able to concentrate for even a second. As a result, my mind had been torturing me with all the various possibilities all the way until morning, and I'd become genuinely scared that something was wrong with me. That was why I went to the hospital, to get an official stamp of approval from a medical professional that said, Nishijo Takumi is completely normal. I wanted to prove that it wasn't me who was abnormal, but Yua. I was used to coming to the hospital's psych ward, and yet, when the grill at the reception asked, "Is this your first time?" I nodded without thinking. Give me a sec. Okay, there we go. Ever since that bus accident, my mother had regularly taken me here for checkups. During middle school, my physician said that I'd completely recovered, and I stopped going after that. This was my first time coming back in school in about 4.5 years. Hello there. Oh, we got a choice. My first physician had been some senile professor who was supposed to have some authority in the field, but I'd only seen him a few times, and after that, someone else had taken over. A student of his or something. So, let me see. For this... Positive or negative? Come on. You know what? Since it says positive or negative, I may as well see how both play out and pick which one I want to go with. So, let me just make the save. So, left to right, let's go positive first. Although, despite calling himself the other guy's student, he hadn't been particularly young. To be honest, he'd looked pretty old. The night before, I was reminded of something that Dr. Takashina had said.
ここは病気や怪我だけじゃなくて 心にも効く病院なんだよ。
I hated hospitals, but that doctor had been very nice. He'd left a good impression on me, and I thought he was a good person. Well, even then, I'd still thoroughly fooled all the adults to the very end. That is, except Dr. Takashina. He'd seen through it all, and he was the one that had declared me completely recovered.
あの人に調べてもらえれば。
I wondered what he'd say if he'd learned that I'd become an otaku freak. Nah, there was no way he'd remembered me after all this time. It didn't take long for me to be called into the examination room. I'd expected to be waiting there for quite a while, but I guess I was wrong. Why had there been so many people in the lobby then? Maybe they were being paid to sit there just to make it look busy. It was a different examination room than the one from 4 years ago. But when I stepped inside, I was welcomed with a face I remembered dearly.
いやー、西条くん。
Dang. Was not expecting that to be who that voice was coming from. Dr. Takashina rose to his feet with a familiar smile, then reached out his hand to me. Realizing he was searching for a handshake, I hurriedly reciprocated.
また君に会えて嬉しいよ。いや、嬉しいというのは変かな。君にしてみれば、またここに来るというのは辛いことなわけだからね。
Despite it being 4 years since we'd last seen each other, he was incredibly friendly. My slight nervousness that I'd been struggling with was eased in seconds.
それで、今日はどうしたんだい？
He gestured for me to sit down, so I did. Likely due to all the tension melting away, I told him everything about what had happened to me, and what might happen to me in the future. I stumbled over my words many times, probably because I wasn't used to talking so much, but Dr. Takashina didn't rush me. He listened to me intently with a serious look on his face, while offering occasional interjections to make sure I knew he was following. Of course, I also told him everything about Yua and the demon girl. I considered that doing so might be dangerous, but right now, he was the only person I could rely on.
結論から先に言おうか。
After hearing everything I had to say, Dr. Takashina pondered for a moment, then began to speak.
君は正常だよ。何の問題もない。
本当ですか？
もちろん。
Those were the words I'd wanted to hear more than anything. I dragged myself to the hospital for the sole purpose of hearing them. I was scared that he'd tell me there was something wrong with me, and I had no idea what I would have done if he had. But getting checked out by Dr. Takashina had been the right choice after all.
むしろおかしいのはその楠木さんという女性だね。西条くんの話だけで判断するのは難しいが、おそらくその女性は精神的な障害を患っているだろう。今後君に危険を及ぼすような行動に出る可能性がある。すぐに警察に通報しよう。
The police? True, that was probably the safest option. He was right. There had to be something wrong with Yua. She was batshit insane. The thought of her stalking me again sent shivers down my spine.
もちろん、僕も責任を持って君を保護するつもりだ。
Looking at me with a powerful, reassuring gaze, Dr. Takashina clapped his hand on my shoulder encouragingly. He even handed me his business card, complete with his phone number.
何か問題が起きたらいつでも連絡をくれて構わないよ。 24時間いつでも君のところに飛んでいくからね。
いいんですか？
当たり前だよ。僕は君の主治医なんだから。
I was on the verge of tears. I was truly grateful to be under his care. From the bottom of my heart. Doctors as good as him are hard to find nowadays.
悪魔女のことについても通報した方が良さそうだね。西条くん、君の見たその女がニュージェネの真犯人で間違いないよ。これはものすごい目撃証言だ。
Dr. Takashina seemed somewhat excited, but you couldn't tell from his tone. As always, he spoke calmly.
事件は西条くんのおかげで解決だ。君は渋谷のヒーローだよ。僕はこの瞬間に立ち会えて実に光栄に思う。
Well, this is definitely a delusion. Especially given how wobbly things are right now. I was a hero? This was an ESO. There was no way someone like me could be a hero. No way in hell. But when I imagined it, my face just about broke into a grin. Middle school girls, high school girls, college girls, MILFs, all of them would be screaming my name and how much they love me. I'd be renowned all over the world as one of the most charismatic people ever to live. Being a TV celebrity sounded cool and all, but I didn't want to appear in front of people, so I'd create a startup company instead. Then I'd become a hugely charismatic boss making the big bucks. I'd be surrounded by a harem of beautiful secretaries serving my every need, and of course, I'd trip all their flags and make them go crazy over me. I'd have a high-rise apartment in Roppongi and hire a bunch of cute maids. It'd be like my own personal maid cafe. Of course, I'd be indulging in the endlessly passionate nightly services. JK, just kidding.
まさに勝ち組。
Well, that was something. I abruptly came to my senses, only to find myself sitting on a sofa in the lobby. Let me, check something here real quick. Okay, I asked, and, they told me to just stick with whichever one I've already picked, so I'll just go ahead and progress. Oh. Oops, I did not read that. Unable to grasp what exactly was going on, I frantically looked around the room. Besides me was a hunched-over old lady, her eyes covered in wrinkles, so I couldn't tell whether she was asleep or awake. I took a look at the clock above the reception desk, and I saw that I had been waiting in the lobby for a full hour. Had that all just been a dream? I hadn't slept last night, so had I dozed off while waiting? How glorious that would be if that dream was actually real. Talk about disappointing. In the end, I found myself waiting for another 2 hours before my name was finally called. When I entered the examination room, it almost felt like the same events I'd seen in the dream were happening again. Dr. Takashina even appeared almost exactly like he had in the dream. It was probably just that he'd barely changed since the last time I saw him 4 years ago. But this time he didn't rise from his seat, nor did he offer to shake my hand.
今日はどうしました？
And unlike the dream, he didn't seem especially happy to see me again.
西条です。
ん？ああ、これはご丁寧に。高階です。はじめまして。
He bowed his head cheerfully. I was at a loss for words. It's a pleasure to meet you. That was what he just said. He completely forgotten me. I shouldn't be surprised. It'd been 4 years after all. But I truly believed that Dr. Takashina, of all people, would remember me. Maybe that was arrogant, but I'd hoped for it all the same. So my heart was overwhelmed with loneliness and emptiness when those expectations were smashed to pieces. It felt like my very existence was being denied. Dr. Takashina started talking to me while making eye contact, but I averted my eyes.
無遊病かどうか調べてほしいと書いてあるが、何かあったのかな?
Right, I'd written that on the questionnaire, but it was all meaningless now. He didn't remember me at all.
別にいいじゃん。先生が覚えてようが覚えてなかろうが関係ないっしょ。最初の目的を忘れちゃダメ。
Oh, right. I hadn't come here to meet Dr. Takashina. I'd come here to prove that I was a completely healthy and sane human being. I mean, your waifu did just talk to you in your head, and you just had a vivid delusion about the actual appointment. A reunion was merely a bonus. Who gives a shit if he'd forgotten me? If Seiratan hadn't stepped in... If Seiratan hadn't stepped in and given me that advice, I would have come dangerously close to losing sight of myself. Ew.
自分でも知らないうちに外に出かけててパソコンで文章打っててそれを全く覚えてないなんてありえますか?
He is so stuttery, oh my gosh.
おお。
知り合いからそう指摘されて混乱しちゃって。
その知り合いの人が冗談を言っているっていう可能性はあると思うかい?
Yua's eyes had been serious. It hadn't looked like she was messing with me. At the very least, I had no doubt that Yua believed what she said.
わかりません。
なるほど。ちなみにその知り合いとはどういう関係だろう? 恋人?
は?
Where the hell had that come from? And what did it have to do with anything? Was I missing something here?
いや、言い方が悪かったかな。じゃあ言い直そう。その知り合いの人は君が意識もないまま歩き回っているのを実際に目撃したのかな?
Oh, so that's what he meant. I shook my head.
じゃあ証拠はないわけだ。
I once again shook my head.
そいつ探偵気取りっていろいろ証拠を突きつけてきて。
そういうことか。ちなみにこれまでにも無遊病の兆候はあったかい？
いえ。
朝目覚めたらいつものベッドじゃなくて違う場所で寝てたっていうことは過去に一度でもあった？
Kind of.
いえ。
じゃあその知り合いに言われたのが初めてっていうことだね。
After nodding weakly, I steeled myself and spoke.
僕、寝てないんです。
もしかして怖いのかな。でもそんなに深刻になる必要はないよ。
いや、その。
That's not what I meant. But I couldn't figure out how to explain it, and it was too late to say it out loud anymore. I was too flustered. After scribbling something on a medical form, Dr. Takashina swiveled away from me in his chair and leaned forward toward the back of the examination room.
葉月くん、ちょっと。
はい。
Hello there. The young nurse rushed over to him, and Dr. Takashina showed her the form. As he did so, He whispered for her to do something, and she quickly withdrew to the back of the room. What had that been about? The doctor turned back toward my puzzled self. Then, in a gentle voice, he began to explain to me how sleepwalking worked. When a person falls asleep, they first begin non-REM sleep, before eventually progressing to REM sleep. Non-REM sleep is a deeper sleep in which the brain hibernates and brain activity ceases. Meanwhile, REM sleep is a kind of sleep where the body is resting, but the brain is active in a state that's fairly close to being awake. Sorry for randomly saying rapid. I was just thinking about the fact that REM stands for rapid eye movement, if I recall correctly.
無遊病はノンレム睡眠の時に起きやすいって言われてる。脳が通常の活動をしていないから普通の受け答えとかは成立しにくいけど、ちゃんと返事もするし、階段などを踏み外さずに上り下りすることだってできる。原因としては精神的なストレスを抱えてる時になりやすいんだ。子供に多い症状だけど、成人でもよくある症状なんだよ。これで分かっただろ？深刻になることはないって言った意味が。
Apparently my niece sleepwalked once. But I hadn't been sleeping. Even though I hadn't been sleeping, I'd still done things I didn't remember. The times Shogun had been posting from room 37 in the chat room should have been when I was busy playing ESO. Could sleepwalking really be possible there? I wanted to ask him that, but he was already moving on to a different topic.
無遊病かどうかを調べる方法としてはいくつかある。一番手っ取り早いのはここのベッドで寝てもらうことだね。ただ特定条件じゃないと発生しない場合もあるかもしれない。例えば自分のベッドじゃないとダメとか、意識がない状態で出歩くにしても目的もなくふらふらと歩き続けるのか、それとも何らかの脅迫観念があってそれに影響されて何らかの一連の目的を持って出歩いているのか。それに君の精神状態についても特定の条件下じゃないとダメかもしれない。自宅のベッドの上ならリラックスできるけど、ここじゃリラックスのしようがないわけだ。どうする？とりあえず寝ていってみるかい？
I had nothing to lose, so I didn't see a reason not to try. Then, after I proved I wasn't sleepwalking, I could try asking the real question I had in mind. The nurse from before, Hazuki-san, or something, guided me over to the hospital bed located at the back of the room. As it wasn't a bed meant for sleeping, it was firm and uncomfortable. Then again, considering the sofa I usually slept on, that shouldn't pose any problems for me.
3時間くらいしたら起こしに来ますから。
Oh, I didn't see that ponytail. This nurse was pretty damn cute. As I lied on the bed, I took a quick peek at her face while being careful to avoid eye contact. Her baby face made her look kind of unreliable, and she even had this almost despondent aura about her, but she was doing her job pretty well. She felt like a heroine right out of a classic eroge, one with kinky hospital sex.
できるだけ目は離さないようにしていますので、安心して眠ってくださいね。
Basically, if symptoms of sleepwalking occurred, like I started wandering around on my own, she'd make sure to take care of me.
それではごゆっくり。
After giving a slight smile, the nurse closed the curtain and left the hospital room. Now surrounded by a pure white curtain, I took a deep breath. All around me, I could hear the voices of doctors examining patients, the sound of nurses running around, and the sound of the door to the examination room opening and closing. Yeah, I doubted I'd be able to relax here. Could I actually fall asleep like this? Figuring I had nothing to lose, I closed my eyes. No matter what I did, my mind refused to think of anything other than that corpse that had been massacred and crucified with stakes, as well as the gory pictures Shogun had sent me. So I forcibly conjured Seraton into my head. Oh.
タッキー、外出嫌いなのに病院来るなんてすごい。
Okay, so for this one, pick neither.
私前から思ってたんだけどさ、タッキーって実はすごく強い男の子だよね。
Oh, right, let me just make a quick save. You have the power of friendship and... I actually don't know. Sarah animatedly moved about in my delusion. Her cute voice chirped for me.
私、そんなタッキーの強さが好き。それに、タッキーは無遊病なんかじゃないよ。私、毎日タッキーのこと見てるもん。だからわかるんさ。三次元女になんか騙されちゃダメだぞ。タッキーには私がいるっしょ。
Remain loyal to the waifu in your head, Takumi.
またコンテナハウスで二人きりで過ごそうね。ボケナス。
Just the two of us. Seraton, you're so cute. Seraton. She really was my ideal waifu. There wasn't a single woman better than her. 3D, the fuck was that? I want to go home already. I want to go home and have Seraton welcome me back with a smile. Wait for me, okay, Seraton? I'll be coming home soon.
西条さん、起きてください。時間ですよ。
Seraton softly placed her hand on my chest and gently rustled me awake. Ah, now this was the kind of thing I've always dreamed of. Living together with Seraton, I'd have her wake me up every morning wearing nothing but an apron, complete with a wake-up kiss.
西条さん。
I slowly opened my eyes. Someone was looking down on me from above. I accidentally made eye contact with them. It was the nurse, Hazuki-san. I frantically looked around at myself. Just like before, I was lying on the hospital bed. So, everything from when Seraton had started talking to me was just a dream.
おはようございます。結局3時間ぐっすりでしたね。
A full 3 hours, but it felt like I hadn't slept any more than 5 minutes. As I rubbed my eyes in a daze, Hazuki-san glanced at me, before covering her mouth as if she couldn't hold back a smile.
セイラさんって彼女さん？
I mean, she isn't not, but she not isn't.
ずっと寝言でつぶやいていましたから。
Even I could tell that I was going pale. I made one hell of a mistake. How could I let someone hear my sleep talking? What's more, of all things I could have said, I blurted out Sanaton's name. So this is despair. I want to die.
でも無遊病の症状は結局出ませんでしたよ。
As she opened the curtain, Hazuki-san conveyed that to me.
まあ今日はたまたま症状が出なかっただけかもしれないから無遊病でないっていう断定はできないですけど。
No, I really don't think I'm a sleepwalker, so... More importantly, I had to ask the doctor that really important question. But I couldn't see him anywhere. As I looked around, Hazuki-san handed me a blank form. Not really focusing all that hard, I took it from her and ran my eyes over it. It was a fill-in-the-blank style form.
それはあなたの心理状態を把握するためのチェックシートです。心理テストのようなものね。それを書いてくれたら今日はもう帰っていいって先生が。
先生は？
ごめんなさい。ずっと診察が続いてて。来週まで様子を見て、まだ改善が見られないようならもう一度来てくださいって。
Then again, it wasn't like he was my primary physician or anything. I suppose he'd probably just given Hazuki-san a bunch of directions to get me out of here. Well, guess that means there was pretty much no point to me coming to the hospital today. I really wanted to ask Dr. Takashina about the someone that wasn't me controlling me. Whatever it meant, it was a really chilling symptom, so I didn't want to leave without getting an answer. That being said, I didn't have the courage to demand Hazuki-san bring him back to see me, especially when she already looked so apologetic. Reluctantly, I decided to give the test a try. Guess I'd write about my symptoms on the back of the sheet or something. If I did that, I should be able to get another examination scheduled for next week.
チェックシートは質問に対してイエスかノーかだけを答える簡単なものですから、当てはまる点があったらイエスにチェックしてくださいね。今後の西條さんの治療に対する参考にしますから、じっくり考えて答えてください。
Hazuki-san went out of her way to explain the procedure thoroughly. The test had some strange questions mixed in, ones you wouldn't normally expect to run into at a hospital. It really did seem like some sort of psychological test. Would they really be able to actually learn something from questions like these? Hazuki-san stared at me intently. She showed no signs of leaving. But it wasn't like she had nothing else to do or anything. It was more like she was monitoring, watching over me or something. My nervousness at being watched made it hard for me to think clearly. But I guess she was just doing her job. Either way, I knew I ought to fill out the test quickly. When you have business to take care of, you prefer to use emails over phone calls. Your ears ring every now and then. Oh, I have to fill this out. Interesting. Well, I mean, Takumi doesn't even have a cell phone, so yeah, I guess. Your ears ring every now and then. We had that tinnitus moment in the alleyway. You have felt someone's gaze and turned around before. You have seen objects that are supposedly stationary move for an instant. I'm trying to think, has he? Yeah, I don't think he has. You have experienced a premonition. While looking at a digital clock in passing, you've seen the same numbers appear in sequence. You've seen the same numbers appear in sequence. So like 123. Yeah, I don't think he has. Or if he has, I just don't remember. You have already cried once this month. Probably, yeah. You can masturbate using only your imagination. Not a skill that, not a skill I'm aware of with Takumi. When masturbating, you can visualize uninterrupted imagery. I imagine the answer's probably yes. You can daydream without closing your eyes. I think he does. The frontal view of a car sometimes looks like a face. Yeah, I don't think he's ever mentioned that. You have a hard time going to the bathroom after watching a horror movie. I can't speak for that. You cannot handle haunted houses. Did he mention something about a haunted house? It's Takumi, so he probably can't. When you start reading a book, you become so immersed in it that you lose track of time. Reading a book? Takumi? You believe that other planets inhabited by human-like creatures exist. I mean, he probably would want to believe that. Gives him some sexy alien waifus. The personality attributed to your astrological sign matches your personality perfectly. I don't know a damn thing about astrology, so... You are prone to motion sickness. You believe there is a god. I mean, he doesn't seem to not think that, since he once used to think that it was God looking down on him. You have a strong ability to sense the supernatural. To hell with it. You have dreamed in color before. Oh, absolutely. You have been in a dream in which you knew you were dreaming. Actually, no, he hasn't ever... Whenever he's in his delusions, he seems completely immersed in them. You have experienced memory loss. Well, the thing is that his first delusion... He remembers his other delusions, but the first delusion he had, he didn't seem to remember at all and attributed it to jamais vu. Or déjà vu. So, I'm gonna go with that. You have a hard time making eye contact with people. Absolutely. Merely the sight of sour food makes your mouth fill with saliva? That is a question of all time. I mean, I don't know anybody who doesn't, but this is also Takumi, so... Well, I tried my best. And knowing how this goes, Knowing how this stuff goes, I got all but one correct. I mean, yeah. Yeah, all but one correct. That's me.
はい、お疲れ様でした。
I mean, I imagine that probably wasn't consequential in the slightest, but it was fun to at least try. Hasuki-san thanked me as I answered the final question, despite the fact that I hadn't said anything. I felt pretty embarrassed at being watched the whole time. My face was probably bright red. Because of that, I avoided looking at Hazuki-san when I handed her the test. There had been no time to write my symptoms on the back.
それでは待合室でお待ちください。お薬が出てますから。
薬
They were prescribing me something? Dr. Takashina had never said anything about that. That was probably what he's whispering to her about.
弱い精神安定剤です。ぐっすり眠れるようになるし、副作用などもありませんよ。
Oh, wow. Thoughtful as ever, Dr. Takashina. And yet, when I realized I would have to wait in the lobby again, my mood was immediately sent spiraling. I couldn't tell if he was being sarcastic there for a moment. Sorry. Value of death. Life is suffering caused by desire. To end the suffering, we must end desire. The contagious madness. The unchanging me. Power lines. November 24th. Start 9 p.m. Sunday. I'm curious. I want to check something. When was the last... November 24th, 2009. That was a Tuesday. ...2008 would have been Monday. 2007 would be Saturday. 2010... years where November 24th was on a Sunday. So there will be one next year. Well, that's weird. By the time I'd gotten back to Shibuya, it was already evening. The hospital was technically in Shibuya Ward, but since Yoyogi was the closest station to it, commuting via train was the fastest. But the Yamanote line had been crowded as ever, and despite only being 2 stops long, the trip back still made me incredibly tired. Riding the train any farther would have been a pain in the ass, so I decided to get off at Shibuya Station and make my way back to base from there. Even then, there were still tons of people outside the station. I despised crowds. They made my head spin. Not wanting to stay much longer, I tried to speedwalk out of the scrambled crossing. But even walking straight was nigh impossible. Stumbling even slightly caused people from both behind and in front to bump into me. What's more, a bunch of people handing out pocket tissue packs blocked the way, practically forcing everyone who passed by to take them. Fed up with everything, I ignored the first person handing them out, but took some off the second, because at least she was a cute grill. I was so sick and tired of these people handing out tissue packs and shit to push their products. Didn't they have anything better to do than stand right in the middle of the road? Well, whatever. It was free, so some might as well take it. Well, it's the job they get paid to do. Inside the tissue pack I took was a red flyer, and there was a paragraph's worth of shit written on top of it with white ink. Talk about ostentatious, like, holy shit. You couldn't exactly miss something with that color scheme. As I walked along, I gave it a quick skim. Type B blood is in short supply. Currently, Shibuya Ward is suffering from a severely short supply of Type B blood. This has only continued to worsen, and we've been struggling to secure the proper quantities of blood for those in need of transfusions. In the worst-case scenario, this may lead to the deaths of many. Without your cooperation, lives may be lost. Please consider becoming a blood donor. Visit the donation Shibuya station of the Inokashira line. It was a blood donation flyer. As I read it, I thought back to the form I'd filled out in the hospital. I didn't have any memory of filling out something like that 4 years ago. Maybe the way they examined patients had changed recently. The questions he was being asked were a little too weirdly specific at points, which makes me wonder if Takashina knows more about Takumi than he's letting on. Even then, though, something felt oddly familiar about the test. Though I suppose it's also possible that the nurse was going behind the doctor's back and giving that test to him. Who knows? Deja vu. I've been getting hit by it all the time recently. Having my mind and body not function the way I wanted them to, the sense of dissonance, was an incredibly uncomfortable feeling. So, in order to ascertain the true cause behind the deja vu, I tried flipping back through the pages of my memories. I thought back to when Mom had taken me to the hospital about once a week. I kept my mouth shut at all times and only expressed myself via nodding or shaking my head. At first, I'd been taken to a perfectly ordinary examination room, but since I showed no signs of improvement, I started going to a different room before long. The room had essentially been a counseling room, which meant it put the patient's relaxation first and foremost. In other words, there were sofas and plushies and whatnot located all throughout the room. Dr. Takashina had taken a very patient approach to treating me, all while refusing to blame my situation on anyone. He alone caught on to how I was merely choosing not to speak, rather than having the inability to do so. Meanwhile, my mom would always talk to me in an unnaturally cheery voice. Every time I'd gone to the hospital, the doctor would always welcome me with a refreshing smile. The nurses also treated me with all the love and care they could, and I had a feeling that there had always been one more person in the room. Right. There had been a man in a black suit, one that felt fairly out of place in a hospital. Yeah, I noticed him in the first, but I just assumed he was a supervisor or something. As I'd been doing my best not to speak, I had never asked about him. I didn't know who the hell he was the entire time he was there. He didn't feel like a doctor, and he always stood all alone a fair distance away from everyone else, all while gazing out the window. I had dubbed him Mr. Nozomi in my head, though that wasn't his actual name or anything.
Nozomi.
Oh! that was the word on the bottom of the form, Nozomi, which was an acronym. So, if that's the name of the institution that form was from, then why did Takumi know the name, and why did he dub him Mr. Nozomi? Oh, interesting. The man in the suit always had a badge on his chest, no matter the situation. And on that badge was the word Nozomi. Okay. Never mind then. He had a perfectly reasonable reason to know that, I guess. It looked like a logo to me, though, so it probably wasn't a name tag. Oh, I knew why it was bothering me now. That test from before also had the Nozomi logo printed on it. I had a hunch that I'd seen it somewhere before, and now I finally remembered exactly where. It was like a huge weight had been lifted off my chest. That aside, what was Nozomi anyway? I was pretty sure it was the name of a business.
のぞみさんっていう美人女社長が設立したカウンターテロ組織とか、漫画みたいだ。
Delude. When I'd arrived at my base, I'd gone straight to looking up Nozomi online. However, there were so many results that I couldn't manage to pin down anything specific. Well, let's go with a more normal theory first. That Nozomi guy could have been from the company that made the test, and he was just at the hospital in order to sell them or something. The hospital had then adopted the tests recently, and they decided to have me fill one out today. I doubted that. I'd never heard of some rando attending a patient's examination like that. Actually more common than you'd think. Like, you got students, for example. So, who the hell was that Mr. Nozomi guy? Memories kept pulling at my mind, but I was fed up with it at that point. Either way, the reason behind my deja vu was now clear. I decided that I'd ask Dr. Takashina about my memory issues next week, but until then, I was going to stay cooped up in my room without bothering with school. There was no way in hell I'd go to a school where people were trying to hurt me. In all honesty, I really don't want to screw up the minimum attendance chart I'd so carefully constructed, but it wasn't worth getting myself killed over. I gave up on my Nozomi search and went to look for any interesting-looking threads on @channel. New Gen News Bearer. New Gen number 1, Group Dive. New Gen number 2 equals Man-Child. New Gen number 3 equals Crucifixion. I guess they found the body then. Even the ESO board had threads like, let's try and replicate new gen crimes in ESO. And to be honest, I was beyond sick and tired of the whole thing. Diving back into ESO, I found Grim. The @channel news is super fucking boring recently. Actually, I think I'll give Neidhart a different voice for fun. They really won't shut the fuck up about New Gen. Well, it is the biggest thing of note recently. Whenever a new incident like this happens, people always freak out about it. Shitstorm incarnate, lol. They still haven't caught the culprit? I mean, you and I both know the police are incompetent, lol. There's tons of idiots all over the web painting the culprit as some moe hot chick, lol. That demon girl. The desolate eyes of the girls I'd seen at the crucifixion murder scene flashed through my mind, and I felt a shiver run down my spine. As much as I didn't want to remember, that ghastly memory would come back any time I let my guard down. Wait, I'd seen the culprit's face. I knew who they were. Should I report it to the police? I didn't want to get involved. And I'll just continue with the talking me voice. Demon girl? Is there already an offshoot of the perp like that? I might be taking it a bit too far, TBH. Anyway, these new gen cases are seriously interesting, dude. I've joined the free par and new gen community. You're getting way too into this. Everyone but you and Siskin from our guild has joined. Oh god, was he serious? I wouldn't be able to hop on and chat with my guild anymore. New gen is some weird shit, man. Gives me the chills. I knew you were into gory stuff, Grim, but... Don't tell me you're the type that looks for artistic merit in murder cases. True, the crucifixion corpse could have easily been mistaken for modern art, so it'd be fair to say that it was artistic in some sense. Nah, the only thing you should be seeing here is how lewd it is. It's like the ultimate form of BDSM. This guy's hopeless. I'd better do something quick. You'll get it once you leave behind your virginhood, Neidhart Ton. You lowly bastard. Are you saying you're not a virgin? You damn traitor! ORZ. Back on topic, though. The site pooling all the info together is filled to the brim, so you really ought to take a look. What the heck is ORZ? Oh. Huh. Shitstorm, net slang, a state of furious, chaotic excitement or activity on an @channel thread. ORZ, an ideograph depicting a person on... okay. An ideograph depicting a person on all fours, depressed. O is the head, R is the arms and torso, and Z is the legs. I see it now. Typically used to express despair, dejection, or frustration. There's no set way to pronounce it, and as such, people may pronounce it as orts, ors, or orse. I'll go with orts, I guess. Diagnostic. What the? Huh. Oh, diagnostic results. It's in this diagnosis thing. Oops. You are moderately delusional, which is the most common diagnosis. You live a relatively comfortable life in the real world, and you are likely able to spend around the same amount of time hanging out with friends as you do enjoying TV, video games, and other media by yourself. Human beings are creatures that require delusions in moderation, for such a thing is the reason why our minds are so enriched. In your case, I'm sure you can enjoy your delusions while still making the best of your real life. Going forward, it'll be important to maintain a good balance between real life and delusions. If you allow your delusions to run too wild, you may find yourself in danger of becoming a freak in no time at all. Well, that's a very objective term there. A word from Ayase. I suggest you sing. Let song flow from your lips. Singing is an act that exists in reality. However, pouring your thoughts into song is an act born from delusion. Singing allows these two sides to coexist, and you can share such a beautiful coalescence with many. That's why you should sing. A word from Yua. I by no means think that it's weird to enjoy anime, but please don't let anime be the only thing you talk about in daily conversations. Says you. I assume that was probably a personalized result for the player, but I was trying to answer it as Takumi, so yeah. I really didn't want to look. I was scared to. I wanted to escape the reality in which I'd witnessed the scene of the crime. That's why I'd been intently avoiding all info related to New Gen ever since then. I wanted to fool myself into believing that the gruesome scene I'd seen had been just a delusion, but I was basically a god in ESO. Not just someone strong, but someone who knew all. Not to mention, I was the guild leader. It'd be beyond embarrassing if the organizer of the group couldn't keep up with the latest topics. I had to make sure that didn't happen. I clicked the link to the site Grim had sent me. The top of the site had the title, All Things New Gen, written in big letters right in the top center of the page. This type of website was basically like a wiki. It was open to the public, and anyone could enter info related to a particular topic. Wiki, an online system for the creation and compilation of hypertext documents on a web server. In the case of this New Gen site, loads of people entered info concerning New Gen and the site updated as they did. Sites like it tended to suffer from unreliable info being mixed in, as well as its fair share of vandalism from trolls, but they could still be pretty useful for getting a quick overview of an incident. Many links were pasted all over the page. I promptly clicked on the link that read Current Timeline. My heart raced. Just reading the site was making me nervous. My palms were slick with sweat. Want the general news? New Gen headlines. The earthquake of 2 months ago. Brutal, bizarre serial murders, 3 in total. Corpse affixed to a concrete wall. Witnesses claim they heard nails hammered around crime scene. Are the crimes all being committed by different people? Crucifixion, man-child, group dive. Victim was a 56-year-old university professor. Templates ume, kokodayo, everyday buri buri, ikon kituner konkon, bye-bye.net/not, news-swen, memo-momo-ume, good, come, hiki nikki. Futanari Daisuke. Trick to Watori. Homo Station. Nyoki Moon. Pantu Pari Pari. These are your list of bookmarks. Are they Takumis, or are they this weird site? The first incident, dubbed the Group Dive, was the suicide of 5 high schoolers that had jumped to their deaths. It happened in the dead of night on September 7th, which was about a month ago at this point. The building that they jumped off was Cornelius Tower, which was located in Shibuya. They dove off the rooftop helipad. Of course, all 5 had died instantly. According to the autopsies, the 5 had all had foreign pieces of flesh under their fingernails, along with various scratch marks on their hands. Were they scratching each other? Based on that, it was surmised that the 5 had been that the five had been holding hands as they jumped for one reason or another. If they were being forced to do so, it might make sense that they were holding so tightly that they ripped into each other's skin. Either that, or when they hit the ground, that might have... yeah. There was no suicide note of any form on the rooftop. A person online, one of those people acting like Snake, had actually gone to Cornelius Tower themselves and reported that the door to the roof had a sign on it saying, "No entry to unauthorized personnel," and that it was locked practically 24/7. Snake, the name of the protagonist of a certain video game who was a professional in covert operations, is often referenced on the internet when an ordinary person is conducting anonymous or secret investigations. For example, during an operation, one of these individuals might say, "This is Snake. I've infiltrated the building." Ugh. Naturally, the door had been locked at the time of the incident, and the key was not found among the belongings of the deceased. Essentially, the rooftop helipad... Sorry, I was reading that in my regular voice for a moment. Essentially, the rooftop helipad had effectively been a locked room, and the method the five had used to enter was completely unknown. There was a very high chance that someone other than the five had been present at the scene of the incident. The second incident, dubbed the man-child murder case, had occurred 12 days after the first incident, placing it on September 19th. Early in the morning, a university student on their way home from a karaoke session had discovered a collapsed man covered in blood by the Shibuya Station underpass. The victim had been a university student residing in Shibuya Ward, a 21-year-old named Konoe Chizuo. He was already dead when he was discovered, but his abdomen had an unnatural, very large swelling. According to the autopsy, someone had performed an abdominal incision on the man, stuffed a newly born fetus inside the man's stomach, then stitched it back up. Moreover, a DNA test confirmed that the fetus had no blood relation to the victim. The victim was a bachelor and had no relations with any women. Was the victim Takumi in disguise? It was only online speculation, but it was assumed that the 32-week-old fetus had been removed from its mother's body via C-section. However, the mother's identity, current whereabouts, and even whether or not she was alive was completely unknown. It was possible that the police had already discovered her whereabouts, but if they had, nothing had ever been publicly revealed. I suppose it's also possible one of the 5 victims from the group dive could have been the mother, but, I averted my eyes from the monitor to keep myself from throwing up. Jesus Christ, talk about nauseating. The culprit was completely insane. And maybe, just maybe, these ghastly murders had been carried out by that girl. Japan is over! I stared at Seraton in an attempt to bleach my eyes. And with that, I somehow managed to stabilize my mental state. I considered taking the meds the doctor had given me, but Seraton did the job nonetheless. Anyway, while that might have been necessary to maintain Neidhart's honor, reading all that gory stuff really fucking sucked.
そんなに辛いならさ、読まなくていいって。
That's a new face.
タッキーがド M ってんなら別に止めないけど、辛そうなタッキーは見てられないさ。もうやめよう。 楽しいことだけしてようよ。いつもみたく私にハーハーしてもいいからさ。
Oh, how wonderful and caring you are, Seraton. Seraton was the only one who would stay by my side. I couldn't ask for a better waifu. I rested my chin on my hands above the table, watching Seraton smile as I took deep breaths. My soul had been healed. I might be able to get through a little more if I kept glancing at her as I read, and so I decided to put that into practice right away. Come to think of it, why had those two unrelated cases both been slapped with the new gen label? Apparently the group dive had initially been treated as a group suicide. But after the man-child incident occurred, people online reinvestigated it and discovered the unnatural circumstances surrounding the scene of the crime. Rumors then began to appear, saying that the five may have actually been killed and the suicide label was merely a cover-up. According to the parents and good friends of the five victims, there was no way it could have been suicide. Then, the mass media had started making connections between the two incidents, starting with where they occurred, Shibuya. Madness explodes in today's youth. The new generation madness. Sensationalist headlines like that had started popping up everywhere, to my understanding anyway. Then came the third case, the murder case I'd witnessed, dubbed the Crucifixion. The site didn't have as much info on this case, likely due to it having only occurred recently. The victim, 56-year-old Ota Hisashi, was a university professor who had been crucified with stakes to the concrete wall of a vacant house. That was all that had been publicly revealed. Many of the neighboring residents had claimed that for over an hour after the time the crime was thought to have occurred, around 8 p.m., they could hear the sound of nails being hammered into something. Even I'd heard the sound. I could hear it now. A horrible, terrifying sound. On a related note, no connection between the third case and the group dive or the man-child had been discovered yet. But with it being the third abnormal incident to happen in quick succession in Shibuya, the crucifixion was naturally treated as another new-gen incident. The police and mass media believed that all the crimes had different culprits, but the predominant opinion online, or rather, what most of the net hoped was going on, was that the crimes either shared a single culprit or an organized group of culprits. There were also many occult-based theories whispered about online, such as that everything had begun with the earthquake from 2 months ago. 2 months ago, an earthquake with a seismic intensity of 3 occurred, with Shibuya as its epicenter. Although the scale was fairly minor, there were still 8 fatalities, which became a popular topic of discussion. Slave cart! Come to think of it, it was true that the new gen cases had begun after that earthquake. Because of that, the new gen occultists argued that the 8 deaths in the earthquake should be counted as the first new gen incident, causing a dispute between them and the new gen mainstreamers. Regardless, the entire situation was abnormal. After all, despite the fact that 3 brutal cases had occurred in quick succession, no clues on any of their culprits had been found. Let me read that again. Yeah. The scale was fairly minor, but there were still 8 fatalities. Japan usually builds stuff to be able to withstand earthquakes, right? Like, well, we'd have to know more about the actual circumstances of the 8 deaths, but when I think about it, the beginning of the game almost looked as though a more massive earthquake had happened in this area. So, maybe this whole thing is a delusion of the dying Takumi and the aftermath of the earthquake. And many online were waiting eagerly for a 4th case. If I wasn't directly connected to it all, I probably would have joined in on the Chaos Head NoAH myself. Posted in a few threads, made a few theories. I could have been waiting excitedly for the 4th incident at this very moment. Damn it. All these assholes were just having the time of their lives, weren't they?
犯人を早く捕まえてくれよ。
A week had passed since the crucifixion, but neither the demon girl nor the police had made any moves. If they knew I'd been at the scene of the crime, they would definitely come and question me about it. But there hadn't been any signs of that actually happening. Thank God. It looked like I wasn't going to get dragged into this after all.
あなたには予知能力がありますか？
That claim Yua had thrusted at me flashed into my mind.
予知能力があるって思わなきゃ納得できないような画像データをあなたが持っていたから。
Even though I'd finally started to relax, that feeling of despair came flying right back in an instant. The image sent by Shogun. The data was still on my PC. Yua's claims were no more than delusions she'd dreamt up. That's the pot calling the kettle black. Her deductions were a total stretch, not to mention logically bankrupt. While I might have ended up not asking about it in the hospital today, the idea of me doing things without remembering them was completely absurd, utterly impossible. I mean, nothing like that had ever happened to me before. So the gory image was obviously faked.
だったらさ、
Leave me alone!
証拠を見つけちゃえばいいさ。あの画像解析しちゃおうよ。
It's so disgusting. I really don't want to look at it any more than I already have.
あの女を論破しちゃえば、タッキーはもう怯えることなく平穏な生活に戻れるんだよ。やるしかないっしょ。
Of course, she was exactly right. Yua had talked to me as if I were the culprit behind the crucifixion, but that wasn't true at all. I mean, I'd seen the culprit's face, as if I'd let Yua put the blame on me after that. So, with a gulp, I double-clicked on the folder where the images were cached. Oh gosh. I want to continue, but I am gonna hit 2 hours at this point. Well, this is cut away from that scene, so guess there's no better place than now, I guess. So I'll continue tomorrow. See you guys then. Yeah, so many questions are popping up, and well, they brought up that earthquake, so you know how these things go. That earthquake is absolutely gonna count somehow. But and I'm just trying to think of like what the connection of those murders has to be. Like, is it just random, or is there some kind of symbolism behind them? Well, regardless, I look forward to playing more this coming week. So, see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one.